People in this town want everything to be all black or all white. They believe cops are all bad and crooks are all good, and back in the day, it was the other way around. Me, I've been a cop only a few weeks now, and I already know better. On my first day of duty, I saw my partner gunned down in the street like an animal. Who did it? Why'd they do it? People want to believe events are caused by singular motivations, that everything can be boiled down and simplified. The truth is, layers of motivations and ulterior motives run deep into people's souls, and most of the time, they don't want you seeing the whole truth. But me, I know better. I've been walking this damn beat too long. Welcome to the precinct, the proud fortress of where truth and justice is dispensed. In the lobby, the stale memorial wreath from my fallen partner stinks up the place with old juniper potpourri. The desk clerk should have trashed it by now. The usual hangovers have their faces down on their desks. The hallways waft with the smoke from the captain's cigars. No doubt he's puffing away behind that locked door at this very moment. And the click-clack hammer hits from the typewriter keys echo through the walls, dotting I's and crossing T's. And here I am, getting my marching orders at the morning briefing, as usual, by Captain Metermaid. I swear he puts issuing our monthly quotas above solving a murder. A couple of my less esteemed colleagues drop me at the start of my beat, and as they do, they suggest I choose a side. You see, my jurisdiction happens to be divided and fought over by a street gang and a mob family who operate out of the local Italian joint. Then there's the police, aka myself, walking the beat trying to keep order. Choose a side, they say, black or white. There's that phrase again. But they don't know my plans. See, my partner got shot. If I'm gonna be targeted next, I'm gonna need to obtain as much info as possible from all parties who may be interested. I'm gonna need to be friends with everyone on my beat. And how do I plan to do that? Favors. First, I head over to Mob HQ. Louis's got some info he'd like to pass on regarding their turf rivals, the local street gang called The Crew. He has a tip for me regarding their smuggling operation. I find the vehicle he ratted on, and I root around the trunk. There it is, just as Louis said it would be, right under the spare tire. A tightly packed kilo. Now, what do I do with it? Now to make peace with the rival crew. They're running the local pawn shop as a front, and that's where I talk to my contact. They need a favor as they seem to have misplaced a hot piece in an alley, and could I retrieve it for them? I head over and find the gun stashed in a fast food baggie near a dumpster. I again have a new decision to make. Shall I be less than lawful and make good with the crew by returning this potential evidence? For now, I shall. Before my beat is over, I have one more party to bring into my fold. A local working girl named Champagne. We head up to her apartment. She could be an invaluable source of information, I tell her. I know what she does isn't legal by the letter of the law, and it's an unfair shake she's doing it. The world is cold and cruel. This girl's working just like anyone else trying to get through the damn day, and I got just as much respect for her as the next guy. Probably more, I tell her. Mister, if you want to keep respecting me like this, it's gonna run you another $150, she tells me. Later that evening, after I set down my .45, chow down some Chinese, knock back a pop, and stub out my cigar, I tally up the day's events. If I'm gonna keep playing all sides, I'm gonna have to keep track of what's what and who's who on a daily basis. I fall to sleep in front of the tube, but when I wake up, I'm standing on the white hot sidewalk on my beat. My .45 is in my hand and I'm aiming it. What the hell is going on here? There's a perp not 20 feet away, and I'm staring down his steel barrel. I'm aiming at him. I gotta shoot. It's kill him or get greased, but it's like my finger is locked. I can't pull the trigger. I need to quick or his gun rings out. I fall into a pile on the ground, my own blood raining down on top of me. I wake up. The breeze is blowing in my open window. Later that morning on my beat, I get a call over the radio about a local artist operating without a permit. To top that, he's using the side wall of a mini-mart as his canvas. He sees me and splits. Why do these foot chases always end in fisticuffs? I don't know, but they always do. Graffiti, petty theft, assault, they run, I chase, we scrap, then they get tossed in the can. That's my beat. What's next on the menu today? Here we go. The radio crackles and I got a body in an alley. I secure the scene and start asking gawkers for details, but like always, the witnesses are clammed up. The church is nearby, so I figure maybe the priest will be more forthcoming. Unfortunately, something's got him spooked as well. Before he can finish denying seeing anything, a dizzy spell hits him and he almost takes a header down the front steps of the church. Take a seat, Father. That'd be a hell of a way to go. Before you know it, my point man for the mob has another hot tip for me. He gives me info on another vehicle to search and would see it as a personal favor if I did. I find the black Cadillac in question and pop the trunk with my jimmy stick. While I'm rooting around the spare, I get a strange feeling in the pit of my stomach. I find the package, but before I can pull it loose, a square in a suit is squaring up on me. Turns out he works for the department, Internal Affairs. I don't have a warrant to show him, so he assures me I'll be seeing more of him real soon. I can't help but feel this was a setup by the mob family to gain leverage on me. If they want to hit me, I gotta hit back. I'll go grab some leverage of my own. First, I chow down a street dog to make sure I'm juiced up. Then I head over to the donut shop. Inside, some mob enforcer is doing his weekly shakedown. He's expecting me to nod and move on as per a routine. However, today the routine changes. I grab him by his slick suit collar and choke him out half cold with his rayon tie. Then I inform him he's going to jail. As I walk him out to a waiting cruiser, I feel confident. This will serve as a reminder to the mob family that we can do business, but they don't own me. As the red evening sun blazes down on my beat, some random mug waddles up and informs me they are worried for my safety. It's a half-veiled threat that comes across clearly. Looks like my relationship with the family went from cordial to cockeyed in a single day. This causes me to think back to about a week ago. Some contact man I have made me an offer. If things get too dicey and I just need an out, off my beat, away from the city and everything, if I could scrape together 2 G's, he could get me a one-way ticket to Mexico. Sunsets, senoritas, and a peace of mind. An escape. I'll have to think about that. I don't have my usual appetite for Chinese that night, instead retiring to my room to smoke a stogie. I thought back on the most disturbing thing I had seen that day. It was at the eastern border of my beat, underneath the theater marquee. I attempted to shake awake a hobo who was one toke over the line. After no luck, I slap him hard, and he mumbles to get him the junk from his front pocket. I dig into his soaked flannel, but there's nothing left, just an empty cigarette cellophane wrapper. There's no more smack in that thin plastic wrapper, and so there's no more life in his fragile human vessel. That night, after I'm done with my beat, I walk home, cutting through a small crowd chatting in front of that same theater. If I, as a police officer, was holding illegal narcotics on my person, and I gave it to that junkie, thus saving his life, would that be categorized as black or white? Good or bad? I wonder if his soul was able to ascend past the neon hanging under the marquee. That night, mortal thoughts have me tossing through slumber. I'm walking down that white-hot pavement. There he is, just past the phone booth, the black steel barrel of his gun pointed right at me. I can't focus. I can't hold still long enough to lock my crosshairs. I squint hard, trying to slow down time, and blood bursts out of me like a dozen water balloons in my jacket pockets. I wake up and try to envision the morning paper in my mind, the last public acknowledgement of my life. I arrive at the precinct, the cigar smoke, the typewriters click-clacking, the bad luck stories of busted trifectas that almost came in the night before, and me, in the briefing room, the morning routine, getting my marching orders, my quota. The captain informs me that forensics has ID'd a suspect in our murder, some perp who's also wanted in connection with a string of diamond shop robberies up on the east side. He says to keep a watch out. Later that morning on my beat, shouting has been reported being heard from a second-story apartment, and I respond to the domestic. Inside, it's not a man and a woman, but a father and a daughter. Him with a knife to her throat and me telling him to calm down, him shaking, sweating, demanding I fetch him beer and food. I have no leverage in the moment. There's not much to consider. I gotta save a kid. With booze? The liquor store clerk inquires with a furrowed brow. I got no time to explain. You'll see it in the evening news, I say. Now hand over the old crow. Next, I'm swinging by the Greasy Spoon for a burger and fries. To go, pronto, I say, while sliding a 5-spot across the marbleized plastic counter for an exclamation point. Back at the apartment, he asks if I got the stuff, and I just toss it all over at once. To no surprise, he goes straight for the whiskey and starts slugging it down. A smile crosses his wet lips, and the knife falls to the floor next to him. Then my right boot tip is up against his jaw. A few minutes later, as I wait at the curb with the cuffed deadbeat, he mumbles something about shoulda known better, shoulda never hooked up with that bird. I tell him he's a damn father now, and when he gets out of the clink, he better act like it, 'cause he's on my beat now. With no lack of irony, later that very same day, just a couple blocks down, I find another father in crisis. It's the priest, and he's pale and half passed out in the trash-strewn alley next to the church. He begs me not to call an ambulance, instead suggesting an alternate method for his resurrection. What does he need, I ask. He rattles off a bunch of multi-syllable words that all translate to narcotics. Is anyone on these streets clean anymore? Is anything simply black or white? Well, I'm off to the races. I stop in on the drugstore. I don't have a script, but I have a dying man, and he's holy, so I ask Mr. Crank if he can do me a solid. He hands over a small parcel from under the counter with a wink and a nod. By the time I make it back, the priest is lights out and in a puddle of his own sweat. I shake him, and I shout, but he doesn't wake, so I root into the parcel, finding some pills, and lo and behold, they contain the power of miracles. After his resurrection, he thanked me profusely, as in only moments he has a big meeting with top clergy, and he assures me he owes me big time. Hey, what could I do? I've seen that same man help children and adults alike in some of their most trying moments. Plus, he's the one that hears the confessions of most people on this beat, and their most guarded sins. That could prove useful. I happened upon him at a moment when his own protective shell was cracked, exposing his hidden vice. I chose to protect him rather than prosecute. It turns out his own life is as black and white as his frock. In the waning minutes of my beat, I see Champagne, and she asks if I'm interested before she's through for the day. I tell her to go home, and be careful. She stares at me for a moment, and I stare into her eyes, thick mascara on those long fake eyelashes. And then my radio crackles out. They've got reports of an armed robbery at the jewelry store on my beat. That's just around the corner. Down the block, I can hear angry shouts from inside the store. Where the hell's the backup at? They're not gonna make it. The perp stumbles out of the shop, his gun sticking out of his waistband. Jewelry drops from his stuffed pockets. On his face, the mad expression of desperation, fight and flight simultaneously. Freeze, drop the gun, I shout, drawing my weapon. He turns, pulling his piece, and fires off half blind. A crack of the hammer and a bumblebee whizzes past my ear. That one was free. I fire from the hip, the hammer hits over and over. A swarm of hot steel slugs crumple his body in on itself with a slosh of blood raining down on top. After the coroner and the news vans, the paperwork and the mop job on the sidewalk, I call it a day. As I walk home, alive, after my beat, I think back on the spider web of choices and consequences that I've woven by spinning my own shade of justice. It occurs to me that I now have the mob under my thumb, the crew in my back pocket, and God as my co-pilot. Favors have put me in the driver's seat. Even Captain Metermaid is satisfied since word got back to HQ regarding my heroism in that apartment with the deadbeat and his daughter. Some might call me corrupt, some may say true blue. They'd both be right. People in this town want decisions to be right or wrong, black or white. You may think I'll sleep good tonight. Me? I know better. I've been walking this damn beat too long.